Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. As some of you know, a couple of months ago I put out a video of free self-care tips and tricks for people with depression. So not surprisingly, but unfortunately, a lot of people really had that video resonate with them, which, you don't want anyone to have depression because it's not fun at all, but that so many people have depression and so many people responded with, yeah, my friends and family just don't understand because I think they equate sadness with depression. For me, that is all the proof I need that there is absolutely no literacy with mental illness in this country specifically, but in Western society in general, and, probably Eastern society too, but I don't have much experience in that, so I wouldn't know. I'm not gonna, venture out on that ledge. So today I wanted to talk about some of I would say they're uncommon, but to be honest, most of the people that I know, this is them to a T if they have depression or anxiety disorders. So I think people label it as uncommon, but I think it's a lot more common than people think because we're so hesitant to reach out for mental health care. I feel like it's entirely underreported. So I'll go ahead and say it's uncommon signs of depression, but I highly question that. So let's just get into it. So for a lot of people, when they think about depression, they think about, oh, it's that person that lays in bed all the time. They're just sad kind of for no reason. It's the person who has suicidal ideation, and those are all signs of depression, obviously. But for a lot of people, the signs are not that simple. So I know for me, with postpartum depression, I was just horribly angry. For me, what I thought was, I don't have postpartum depression, I'm just mad because everyone's doing stupid stuff, or because I have to take on all of this by myself, essentially. And that was not at all accurate, which I should have been able to see, but obviously with something that is like depression, you're not really going to be able to take a good look at your circumstances and see it clearly. But also, I just didn't realize that how I process depression is through anger. That was a big learning curve for me, realizing that any of the other times in my life where I had that kind of pent-up rage and I was kind of making it as though my circumstances were dictating my depression, or my rage rather, I wasn't realizing that that was a pattern in my life that had been pointing to depression that I just didn't know because I was dealing with it through anger. So, that being said, one of the first uncommon signs of depression is irritability. And this is not irritability as in someone's just grating on your nerves every single day. There's just this one person that just does stuff that irritates you all the time. This is hostility, it's anger, it's unjustified irritability. So it's like it comes out of nowhere. The minute someone opens their mouth, you're like, oh, here we go. And the other thing that kind of goes along with that is a heightened sensitivity to anything that you might otherwise just brush off. So that's another thing to look for. If you are super sensitive and you immediately turn that switch, then that is a sign that you might be dealing with depression or anxiety, and it's something to take seriously. If you find that you're just snapping all the time and you feel like you don't really see it coming and it just gets out of control very quickly, then that's something that you need to pay attention to, and that's something that a pretty big sign that there is something wrong and that you need to either find a way to deal with your depression on your own if it's possible, or if you have healthcare, obviously reach out to a professional and seek help in that way. So, and this is kind of like, for me, it was very much going along with my postpartum depression, was a pathological guilt. And this kind of guilt is the type of guilt that just eats at you every single day. Like when you're having a happy moment, you automatically come back to this thing that you did like 5 years ago and you're like, Jesus Christ, I'm a horrible person. I can't believe I did that. No one should ever forgive me. Why does anyone even fucking love me? For me, obviously with a newborn, you get no sleep. they cry all the time. That is torture. It is 100% torture to have a newborn. They're beautiful and it's amazing to see that process and to see them come into themselves, but sleep deprivation and that kind of sensory overload is absolutely torture in any other scenario. So why don't we call it torture in parenting? It's a very hard time. And for me, I had a couple of moments where I totally yelled at my newborn, like screamed at her, screamed in her face because I was so fucking angry and so tired and so stressed out, and I just didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Like, I thought this was supposed to be somewhat natural, and here I am, like, I don't know what to do with you. You're just screaming and crying all the time. What the fuck? When I was still dealing with postpartum depression, those moments would loop in my head, and I would just think, there's no way I can do this. I need to just leave. Like, I should just leave because I can't be her mom. Like, I'm horrible. She deserves better than me. I need to just go because if I were to just get in the car and leave now, she'll have a much better life. It's obviously something that you need to consider. Like, I should feel a small amount of guilt still for having yelled at her when she was an infant. Like, to me, that makes sense. Like, I need to remember that feeling for if I snap at her when she's older. Like, I remember that, okay, you've got this limit, you need to remember that. Like, there is a usefulness in some amount of guilt, but when it replays in your head all the time and tries to push you into making decisions that are completely illogical, that's when it is a pathological guilt situation. And the next sign is the inability to make simple decisions. So this is not like, oh my God, what school should I go to? This is like, do you want mayo or mustard on your sandwich? Like, I don't know. If I get mayo, then maybe I'm gonna want mustard, and then what's going to happen? Like, maybe if I get mayo and then I decide that it doesn't taste good and I ask them to make it over again and put mustard on it instead, they're going to fucking hate me. Everybody's going to hate me. Why can't I make this decision? Like, that is a serious problem. If you are racking your brain every single day for minute things to make a decision about, that is a very serious sign that something is happening in your mind that won't let you focus on simple things. The average person makes about 65 to 70 small decisions a day. And for most of us, that is just like, okay, like clockwork, we have to make a decision and we come up with it on the spot. You're like, coffee or tea? I want coffee. Like, it's that kind of thing. And if you are having a hard time making 65 to 70 small decisions a day, you are having a hard time with your day. Like, it is a serious problem. And if you end up having to put yourself into a position of not having to make any decisions at all, you're probably just staying at home all the time, which is also, it can be very isolating and it can be a big issue for people who are used to going out and socializing. Obviously, if you don't like socializing, then home might be the best place in the world for you, but for some people, that is definitely an isolating thing. If they feel like they can't make a decision, so they just don't go out because they don't want to be faced with that anxiety and embarrassment, then that is a huge issue, and that could mean that you are suffering either with depression or with some other psychological illness, and it is totally worth it to just go and talk to somebody about it, because nobody should have to live with that kind of anxiety about coffee or tea. The next one that we're going to talk about is kind of an obvious one, and I feel like this is one that is not an uncommon sign at all. It is a disconnect from what your body needs and what your body can tolerate. For a lot of people, that is over drinking, so a disconnect from being able to feel when your body is done with drinking. And another one that people often suffer with is an inability to determine what your right nutrition level is. So your body has all sorts of signals that tell you you have had too much food, you have had not enough food, and for some reason when we're depressed, all of that sensation goes away and it's just a medication. So either we're medicating ourselves with the food or with the substance, or we're medicating ourselves by having control of not having the food or the substance. We're like really strong-arming it, like, no, I don't need to eat that food, because if I eat that food, that's just one less thing that I have control of in my life. And that is a big sign that you have depression. The other thing to consider is that if you are a person who really likes dressing your best, who really enjoys pampering themselves, who enjoys like getting manicures, you always have your hair done, and then all of a sudden you're like, I cannot be bothered to brush my hair, let alone put on something besides sweatpants. Like, that is obviously a sign that something's happening and it's worth looking at. And sometimes it's just like a situational issue where, like, obviously if you're a new mom, you're like, I cannot take care of one more person. I already have one person that needs all of my attention. That's one thing, but if it's kind of out of nowhere, or if your situational depression is affecting you to the degree that you cannot cope with your life, so things are kind of going downhill, then you have an issue that you need to talk to someone about. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was, and this is kind of a hard one because you definitely want to take pain seriously. You don't want to think, oh, well, this is just psychological, I'm just going to get over it. But excessive pain without any root cause, meaning you've gone to the doctor, there's technically nothing wrong with you. It very well could be your body just reacting to your mind not being happy, being depressed. If you think about it, depression does cause a lot of things to happen in your body. If you are depressed, then you're going to notice all those aches and pains more, and it's going to be more focused in your brain. It could even be that because you're depressed, you are creating aches and pains because your body needs some way of expressing this thing that it can't express otherwise. So it is important for you to take your aches and pains seriously, but if at the end of the day, know for a fact, like, okay, I've done blood testing, I've done scans, I've done imaging, like nothing, I can't figure out what's wrong with me, it is worth it to at least check to see if maybe you're suffering from depression. Check to see if maybe medication for depression is going to work for you. And if it resolves some of those pains, then you know that it's either a neurological disorder, which is totally like a real thing. Neurological pain is a real thing, and they often have problems diagnosing it. So don't feel like you're a faker. Or it's depression, which in that case, you're still not a faker. Like you need to take that pain seriously. Just allow yourself to also consider the possibility that it is a mental issue, which does not detract from your pain or your suffering at all. I think the thing that people don't realize is that because we're told mental illness is like a taboo, like we should not talk about it, that when our doctor suggests to us that it might be a mental issue that we're dealing with, if we are having pain or stress or lack of sleeping or any of those other issues, we're like, no, absolutely not. I'm not making this up. It's like, no, you're absolutely not making this up, but it is possible that your brain is creating signals to your body that don't really make sense with what your body is doing. Be open to the possibility that you might have some depression issues if you're having aches and pains all the time and there's absolutely no reason for it. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was, and this one's kind of tricky because there is a difference between being manic and being type A. And I totally get that. Like perfectionism it can sometimes be a real problem for people, but sometimes it really works for people. And that perfectionism pushes them to be their best every day. Like these people are oftentimes CEOs or in charge of some business. They're like in charge of their life in a very serious way, or, they are the soccer mom. They've got everyone's schedule like in their head. It's amazing. All the clothes are constantly washed. Like the house is immaculate. There are those people who are type A driven in that way. And what may seem excessive to us is normal for them. However, if you find that you are becoming excessively attentive to anything, like whether it's you're at the gym 3 to 4 hours a day and you have absolutely no intention of doing anything besides that. So it's not like you're going to the gym to like be a bodybuilder. It's like you just go to the gym because you have to do this and this and this. Like if you are constantly at work to the point where your social life suffers and you're not really taking care of your own needs, if you are constantly drinking or doing drugs, I'm all about a little experimentation or like having a cocktail every now and again, but if it's becoming a crutch that you can't live without, these are all things to take into consideration. So even good things can be a sign that you're having some anxiety disorder or some depression. And that one's the really tricky one to figure out. And that's why you really need to take all of these symptoms seriously. If it's starting to affect your life and your ability to be happy, then you need to consider that it might not be coming from a healthy place, even if it's a healthy activity. The big one that I see with this is people who are excessive dieters. That's a huge one. And that's one that you see all the time. The people who are like, no, I can only have 5 leaves of lettuce, and then I can have 2 tomatoes, and I can have a handful of this, and no, I can't even have a bite of that. Like, this is an issue. This is either an anxiety issue or a depression issue. And if it's getting to the point where you cannot live your life, even if it's like a healthy endeavor that you're going on, then you really need to consider that you might need to talk to somebody, or, see if you can cut back on it a little bit, see if you can self-regulate a little bit. And if you find that your anxiety is just pushing you to go that distance with whatever you're dealing with, then it's time to go see somebody for that. At least, go talk to somebody. It doesn't hurt to talk to somebody if you have that option. Obviously, healthcare in this country is atrocious, and I don't want to say, oh, you should always just go talk to someone. Like, sometimes that's just not possible, but it might be possible for you to think about your own situation and figure out if it needs a closer look. So it's just something to consider. Sometimes people have absolutely no idea that something going on in their life is terribly unhealthy for them. And that's, hopefully their family is looking at them and saying, okay, well, you're taking this a little far. Have you thought about talking to somebody? But you don't always have that kind of support system around you. So the best thing that you can do for yourself if you know that you suffer with mental illness is just be vigilant with checking in with yourself. Like, am I doing something that would otherwise be healthy, but that is like really taking over my life to the point where I don't think about any of the things that I usually think about? Or am I having a real problem with focusing on decision making? Am I kind of flighty all of a sudden? Like, these are all things that you need to think about, like what is normal for your personality and what is not normal for your personality to the point that it pushes away your ability to do anything else with your life. So those are just some of the uncommon signs of depression, and there are more. So if you're concerned about your mood, if you're concerned about something that's going on with your life and you have health care, please go talk to somebody. It is worth just checking in to make sure you're okay. And I personally believe that everyone should have free health care and that everyone should, see a therapist at least once a month. I think it's probably the best thing that we can do for ourselves. But until our healthcare system meets our needs in that way, then it's kind of time for us to start checking in on ourselves and trying to remember that just because we're struggling with something doesn't mean that we're weak people. It means that we're struggling with something, and that's it. It doesn't have to be this big, heavy thing, although sometimes it is, obviously. It can just be you checking in with you and making sure that you're okay. Thank you so much for sticking with me today. I know this isn't my usual content, but again, emotional and mental health literacy is really important to me, and I really want people to, feel open to talking about this kind of stuff, because it is part of what makes our life so amazing and so horribly complicated, is that we can have these strong emotions and that we're really tied to the things that we love and the things that we don't love. So I hope that you got something out of this. I hope that at the very least it allows you to remember that just because you're struggling with something doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're weak, and it doesn't mean everything's all in your head. Like, depression is a real thing, and it's okay for you to mention that you're depressed, or to want to reach out for someone to help, or to want to reach out to someone to get help. Like, you shouldn't feel ashamed or embarrassed about that. It's a thing that lots of people deal with, and I feel like the more we push people being okay with saying, I suffer from this mental illness, or I suffer from these kind of anxiety disorders, the easier it'll be for people to just be like, oh yeah, I've been doing something weird lately. I should probably go see someone. And to have all their family and friends go, yeah, you should. Okay, let's find someone together. That's the goal here, is just to get everyone on the same page to say it's not embarrassing to get the help that you need to be a happy person. It's not embarrassing. It's not shameful. You have to do what you do to survive. All right, you guys, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and please, in the comments, let's all be supportive of each other. That is probably the best way to find community, is just commenting and making sure that we are being supportive of one another, saying what works for you in a very non-judgmental way, obviously not pushing it on anybody, but saying what works for you in your own comments. That would be awesome. Or if you have a symptom of depression that you know other people might not realize is a symptom of depression, please list it below, because we want to make sure that people are seeing this and knowing that they're not alone. And maybe if I didn't say something in this video, then they are still getting the information that they need to be able to kind of make decisions for themselves about their own mental health care. All right, you guys, I'll see you next time. Mwah.